Okay, we're back to finish up the Gozantis. Um, I'm gonna be doing some additional painting. We'll do some shading. Some people call it a wash. I just don't want to confuse that with actually washing the models. Um, and then we're gonna do some dry brushing and seal the models. The couple of things that I just want to paint right now are the the bridge area, get it a little darker than what I'm going to get out of the wash or the shading. And I'm going to paint these dishes and the turret guns. The turret guns are interestingly facing backwards, the one direction in the game that the Gazantis can't shoot. To do this, I am going to be using some Abaddon Black for the windscreen, and Iron Breaker for which is a metallic iron silver color for the dishes and the guns. Um, in terms of the engine glow, which a lot of people notice on Fantasy Flight models, the engine glow, that's going to be the last thing that I do. I don't like to wash over the engine glow. I like the engine glow to stand out a little bit. So we're going to start with the windscreen. I'm going to do them both at the same time. It's a tiny bit of paint. Just like yesterday, we are going to get some water on our palette first, and then get a little bit of paint. Mix it with the water. Get it to a nice smooth texture. Just get some of the paint out of the brush. One thing, when I'm doing this, I don't have the steadiest hand. Sometimes this doesn't go all that well apparently at the beginning, but after we do the wash and we dry brush it, things will clean up. So I don't worry about it too much. Just gonna get all three sides of this windscreen. As you can see, I just got a little bit of extra paint on there. I'm not gonna worry about it. All right. And again, I am obviously not the best painter in the world, but if you watch, you don't want to concern yourself too much about stuff like that. It's all going to clean up in the end after we dry brush. A little bit better with that one. All right. And always get the paint out of your brush. I have 2 cups of water. I'm going to keep one clean for adding to paint, the other one to clean off the brushes. All right. And then now we're going to use the iron breaker for the dishes. I've already shaken the paint, gotten it well mixed. The iron breaker sometimes mixes in with the gray a little bit, but I just like it to, for parts that I feel like should have a slightly more metallic feel to them. These should be a little bit easier because we're just going to get the front of these. Yes. And again, the dry brushing is going to clean up any mistakes that we make. All right, and then we're going to just get the guns here. Really quick. The second one, I've learned not to stress too much about painting while I'm doing it. It's no fun when you're stressing about the painting when you're doing it. And I try and do this to relax. It's supposed to be a fun part of the hobby. If it's not, try and find a way to reduce the stress. I find you just have to come to terms with the fact that at least for me, it's not going to be perfect. You just want it the best that you can do and be happy with it. One thing I will say, always make sure you water down your paints. I see models, this is one thing that I really take to heart, is the watering down of the paints. It really gets a nice smooth coat on there. I see some models sometimes online that look like they have really thick paint coats on them, and they kind of stand out to me. When you water down your paints, you tend to get a nice smooth, nice well set paint. But that's our highlighting for now. I'm going to let that dry for just a couple minutes and be right back to do our wash. Okay, so now we are this is where the magic happens. We're now going to apply our shade or wash. This is Citadel Nuln Oil. I would say if you're only ever going to buy one wash, get this one. Nuln Oil is incredible. I love the stuff, and especially for ships like this with Armada, this is the one that you need. There are others that you can do, but for our purposes, if you're only going to get one, get Nuln Oil. Don't worry about the oil on there. It's not an oil. It's still a water-based paint that I'm sure is just to reference the color of it. This is really liquidy. We don't water this down at all. It's already plenty thinned out. You could thin it out more if you'd like. I've seen people mix oils or mix the shades in order to get slightly different colors. But what we're going to do, we're going to start with the bottom here. And with this, I sometimes start pretty thick. You can move this stuff around. So this is where we're going to get all of our detailing to pop. And as you're doing this, again, I'm pretty liberal about it to start with. And then after we see how things have gone, if we have a heavy spot, we'll just move it out of the way. Alright, this really liquidy stuff. Before I put it back on the post, get the sides of these wings here. A lot of nice details in those wings. And those are going to pop even more when we dry brush them. The back of the engines. This stuff, it just gets right into every little crevice of the model and sits down there and brings out all the highlights. You can see it sits down right in those lines. Yeah, I used to think before I discovered this stuff that people would hand do all of these lines, but it's not the case. All you need is a little Nuln Oil and throw it on there, and it does wonders. Again, anywhere where you see it a little bit thick, you can work it out if you want to. Sometimes with like the Rebels, I'll go a little bit heavier on this, just because it gives it a little bit more of a worn look. The Empire, I like to try and keep it even, not too heavy. Alright. And just keep working it in all the way around until you get it into all of those crevices. And I feel like you almost can't make a mistake with this stuff. I'm sure you could just put it on way too heavy, but I've never been dissatisfied with a coat of this. I've always been happy with it. It will really get, if you get a wide crevice like that one there, sometimes we get in there, and if you don't want it quite as dark, you can try and work it out. This does take a little bit longer to dry than the other paints, just because of the liquidy nature of it. Use the antennas to hold it still a little bit on my post. Hopefully you can see all of that. And this is getting the color almost right to where our other Gozantis are. I'm just gonna do this one on the video. I will go back and do the other one. After we're done with our shading, I'm gonna come back and do a little bit of a dry brush in this. Highlight some of the edges of those wings. Make sure the cockpit is cleaned up a little bit. And then all we'll have to do is put in our engine glow, and these will be done. There we go. Looks quite good, I think. It's got a sheen to it right now because it's wet. That's all going to dry up, and we'll end up with a really nice looking model. Okay, we're back to do our dry brushing. For dry brushing, we're going to go back and we're going to use the same Celestial Gray that we used as the base coat. For this, I don't water the paint down for this. Dry brushing can be a little bit tricky. You're going to load up your brush with some paint. Make sure it's in there good. And then you're going to work almost all of it out of the brush before you do anything. Once you think you've gotten all of it out, give it a couple more swipes. Make sure it's out. And then once you think basically all the paint is out of there, you're gonna come over to the edges that you want to brighten, and you're gonna swipe up and down on them quick. You can see that's lightening those up just a little bit. That's all we're looking for. We're looking to brighten some edges. The model went from being a lot brighter than the FFG models to being a lot darker. Now, I don't water this paint down because if I do, it might seep into some of those crevices where we've got our wash. We don't want to do that. We're just trying to brighten up some edges. Getting some details to pop a little bit more. Reload it up and work it out. You do waste a lot of paint doing this, but it's worth it. Some people don't bother with this step. Now you can see here as I'm going along this wing, all those raised edges are picking up just a touch of paint. Notice I'm not using that straw to hold the model because you gotta be pretty vigorous with this because you don't have much paint in the brush and you're just trying to get something onto the model. Oops. I can't even hold on to it with my fingers, never mind the brush. I'm going to do all these edges. It's gonna brighten things up just a little bit. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm almost done. Alright, that's starting to look pretty good. I'm fairly happy with that. The thing I really wanted to get was the edges of these wings, really brighten them up and make them stand out. Alright, so now the last thing that we're going to do with this model is the engine glow. For the engine glow, we're going to use a little Lothern blue. Now these models actually, they have 2 extra engines compared to the standard Gozanti. And you'll also notice in the standard Gozanti, FFG put a little bit of blue right here. So I think we're going to do that as well. Just the slightest little dot of paint. There. Now I'm going to go and finish the other one. And then we're going to apply a coat of clear coat. This is the only tester's product that I'll use. This is a dull coat, so it shouldn't really affect how the model looks much. This is just going to seal in all that paint. Don't do this until you're happy with what the model looks like. So we're going to go do that, and then we're going to come back and have a look at the finished models. Okay, I just wanted to finish up with a comparison of the models. These are done. They came out quite good. I decided to put one on each base just so you could compare them to the other Gozantis. They're really close. Mine might be slightly darker. But overall, I'm very happy with them. I think I'm going to enjoy them on the game table quite a bit. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe. I'll have more videos coming up soon for the Hammerhead and for the Sea Rock, as well as some other projects I have planned.